So hey guys, welcome to another Warframe video, and today we're going to take a look at a Miasma build for Sarim Prime. Now this build has been in the works for about a month. I've tried basically every stat combination you can think of, and I finally arrived at this, and I'm extremely satisfied with the way this build turned out because I don't think I've ever had this much fun in the game. So this is a 3-forma build, and what we're going to do with that forma is change the aura polarity from a D to a dash, and we're going to add a D and a V. So the reason I changed the aura polarity from a D into a dash is because dash just works so much better with Sarim Prime. And on top of that, we have mods like Mediray and Regenerative Malt, which can take care of healing, so we don't have to use something like Rejuvenation. So I think it's much better to run Corrosive Projection because Sarim Prime does mostly viral and toxin damage, which is not very good against armor, so we're going to use Corrosive Projection to strip away some of that armor. Now, if you're not running Distant Roaring Focus School like I do, you can also run Energy Siphon to have more energy to cast more abilities. Next mod on the list is Fleeting Expertise, and I hate how much power duration this mod removes, but I love how much power efficiency it gives you. And that's because with Sarin, every now and then you want to chain all 4 of your abilities back to back, and if you don't have power efficiency, you can't really do that very often, and it feels very restrictive. So for me, high efficiency with Fleeting Expertise is a must for this build. Now, to offset the negative power duration, I am using Primed Continuity. Because without it, this build wouldn't be able to do basically any damage at all. Your Spores, Leash and Mod would have very low duration, which just cripples the amount of damage you can do. So Primed Continuity just helps offset Fleeting Expertise and Transient Fortitude. Then we have Stretch and Overextended, which does cripple power strength a little bit, but it doesn't really matter because this build does a lot of bloody damage, and this helps you spread your spores over the entire map and then miasma the entire map, which is kind of the point of this build. For power strength, I'm running Transient Fortitude, Intensify, and Power Drift to offset that negative power strength from Overextended and add more damage to this build. And finally, for the defensive mods, I'm using Regenerative Malt, which is excellent for this build. Okay, even though Sarin has decent health and decent armor, you'll be in the middle of the action spreading spores around, and at least the way I play Sarin, which is I spread spores mainly through Malt and Toxic Leash, this is excellent. This is going to heal you every time, and in combination with Mediray, this is going to give you a nice boost to survivability. And since Sarin has a lot of health and decent armor, and I'm also using Regenerative Malt with Mediray, I added Vitality for more health for even more survivability. I did try playing without Vitality, but I felt way too squishy while I was in the middle of combat spreading spores around. Now, I do apologize for an occasional drop in framerate because there is just way too many damage and affinity numbers on the screen at any given time. You can do a lot of damage in a huge area, and every now and then my FPS tanks down after a big miasma explosion. Now, the way you do damage with this Warframe is so satisfying because you can screw it up, which means if you pull it off and you get a good miasma, it feels really satisfying. Throwing down your Malt, infecting it with toxic spores, then bursting those spores with Toxic Leash, and then detonating the entire map with miasma is, for me at least, the most satisfying way of doing map-wide AoE damage that's in the game. When I go and derp farm Draco with Excalibur, I get bored immediately. But with Sarin, I can stay there for 2-4 rounds and I'm just having fun. Even though I'm just standing around, I'm spreading spores and I'm detonating them. Because there is a setup to it, and if you screw it up, it's not going to be as effective. With Excalibur, it's just Radial Javelin, Radial Javelin, Radial Javelin, Radial Javelin for 10+ minutes, and that just bores me to tears. And on the topic of Draco farming, before I started really playing around with Sarin, I was very skeptical about her farming Draco the way you farm it with Excalibur. But after a lot of testing, I am pretty sure that Sarin can actually be more effective on Draco than Excalibur. However, it is a much more of a pain in the ass for the Eevee Trinity, because I did it both as Sarin and as Eevee Trinity. And because Sarin just kills everything so fast, it can be really frustrating to find an enemy to use Energy Vampire on, because all the enemies are dead all the time. Honestly, I have no idea if this is like the meta build for Sarin or not, but I think it's the best build you can run. This is so much fun to do. And if you're a fan of, potential failure in your Warframe, where if you don't do it properly, it's not going to be as effective, this is the Warframe for you. It's amazing, and she's slowly becoming my #1 Warframe. This build may not one-shot level 500 units or level 300 units, but if you don't give it a shot simply because you think it's not endgame viable, whatever the that means have fun playing with one Warframe and one weapon all the time. That's definitely not gonna get boring really bloody soon. But anyway, let's be very serious now. This build does more than enough damage for your everyday play in the Star System or in the Void outside of like 5-hour survival missions. I guess the right word for this build is just satisfying. When you pull off a big miasma explosion, it is just damn satisfying. So that's it for the video. I thank you very much for watching as always, and I will see you next time. Bye bye.